A little late, but right on time. 919. Arg. Sorry, we're on pirate time tonight. And been a crazy week, interesting week, insane week. And I haven't actually had a chance to catch up with Luna. We've been busy, so always good to catch up with Luna. How was your week?
I had a busy, productive, surprising week, all
Nice.
in together. Um, and yeah, and I've maintained my happiness. I hope you have.
I have.
Sorry about
Oh,
eating. I shouldn't be eating online, eh?
I don't care. If you don't care, I don't care. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, all you gotta do is just press that little button that says stop camera.
No, you're right. Actually, I'll stop camera while I'm chewing. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, so today, interesting. It was just one of those spur of the moment days where I had a chance this evening to just kick back and catch up and watch a little of the YouTubes.
Mhm.
So, and I had reached out to a mutual friend of ours and left a message, and I sat down, and it's like I had every intention of like getting back with this person, and it just didn't happen. And then I lost track of time because I found this really interesting out of place artifacts video, and it got me thinking, and I just lost some track of time and trying to catch up with Luna and her technical difficulties probably on both ends, because in my haste of, oh, all right, I'm looking forward to this when I get out of work, I had to set up the stream and I forgot to like copy my YouTube link. So, and I forgot to share it, and I came back to share it tonight. And because I'm in StreamYards, I don't know how, if there's a way for me to. So yeah, so I mean, big rookie mistake tonight.
That's all right. I turned everything on and walked away and come back, and I had a black screen, and I'm like, well, this is no good. Everything's working, but I got no screen. We got everything around. Come on, come on, and then it just worked by itself. So okay, so beware technical problems. We don't care. We're used to technical problems, aren't we?
We are, yeah. So
What do we got today?
and
Jules?
when I sat down, I was like literally just I noticed the title sound interesting, and it was from somebody that I had recently started subscribing to and started watching a bunch of more in depth videos that he has done or put on his channel. And a lot of this particular one, out of place artifacts, they talked about the Druga stones, the rock wall in Texas. Um, and there's one of them. It was, I want to say it was a cave in China where there was that had like the horns coming outside of the mountain, and then they were a lot of different far out concepts and theories about that. But one of them was saying that it was an extraterrestrial tree.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, just it seems out of place.
One step back, Jules. Extraterrestrial tree. Did you say?
Yeah, I mean, I have to. I didn't want to talk about it without your seal of approval, but I sent
So
it's in the video that link I just sent you.
yeah, and I haven't had a chance to watch it because I'm here. But as soon as you said extraterrestrial, guess what I thought? A tree from other land. Because extra means more, terrestrial means land. It's a tree from other lands. Because, you know, I have this suspicion there's more land, and I think everyone knows that.
Yeah, and lately, in the past couple of days, it's seems like everything it goes back to ET, extraterrestrial, extra land.
Extra people.
Yeah, and so yeah, so this was out of place artifacts, and then another video that this guy had done popped up, and it was about the original Great Flood, and how there were numerous floods before the Great Flood. I mean, because you have all the Norse had their Great Flood, the Greeks had their Great Flood, and what caught my and I mean, and the Australians had the Great Flood. And
Actually, our flood it wasn't recorded as lots of water came and filled everything up. It wasn't recorded like that because I sussed it out. It was recorded in a story where it just rained a lot and the earth went soft and they moved to higher ground. And when they moved to higher ground, you can still see their handprints and their footprints in the earth from the soft earth. And that's how they explain it, that it just rained a lot and the earth went soft.
Oh God, hang on. Yeah, I found in this video, I can play maybe just a couple of seconds. I mean, I don't want to get copyright or anything,
Right.
but there's the frog, the one about the frog that I got as far. I literally just started watching it when I was kind of waiting for you to come in.
Oh, Tiddalik.
Yes.
Tiddalik.
And
Was
his laughter.
And all the water started disappearing, and all the other animals, group by group, were complaining. They're like, "Where's all the water gone?" And they got together and they figured out that Tiddalik, he was really big by now. He was a giant frog because he had all the water from everywhere. And they were thinking, how do we get him to let go of the water? And they tried all these different things. And one of the animals said, "I know, we'll make him laugh." And then they made him laugh, and as he laughed, all the water come back out. Hey, that's the frog story.
So I mean, there's all these floods that predate the popular flood.
Mm-hmm. Can I tell you another one about the flood from our life? Well, it's got to do with giant trees. So this story is about when there were giant trees, and they were so big it made a different atmosphere up there, and there were other creatures that lived in these trees because of the height distance, and they couldn't walk on ground. And this story goes that one day one of the trees fell down and one of them beings fell to the earth, and we were all watching, and it was having trouble getting back up. But and there's a little bit more to that story, but the point about that story is that these giant trees actually had an atmosphere above our atmosphere, what we have. So because you've got to imagine, when you walk into a forest or the bush, how the trees all join together, they're like a canopy. So giant trees would have had this giant canopy. When they started getting cut down and falling down, these trees, that canopy, that liquid canopy would have fell, and we knew it as a flood because there was more than one. I reckon there's more than one flood. What do you reckon, Jules?
I think so.
Yeah. I think different things attributed to each different flood, but one of the floods was due to this upper atmosphere falling down.
In the Out of Place artifacts, the Piri Reis map.
Oh yes, I know that map. Yeah.
I actually learned a little bit more knowledge behind the Piri Reis map. Well, I think it's the Piri Reis map. It's PIRI.
Yeah, I think you're saying it right.
I mean, REIS. I mean, I haven't looked into anything, but Piri Reis could be spelled differently.
He didn't make Reese's Pieces, did he?
Yeah, I love peanut butter and I love chocolate, but I like them together. But Reese's Pieces just lack that chocolate kick.
I've never had one. I just know there's a thing called Reese's Pieces, and they're edible.
So
okay, back to the flood, because I got another one, because that's like a hobby of mine. I have fun doing things that other people see as work. Anyway, another flood I reckon that come around, I had my sneaking suspicions that there was like a big volcano went off, and the ash caused a lot of stuff, and then it rained a lot and made the ash kind of hard. And if you look around the world at Out of Place artifacts.
And then I had a thought for a moment about flood, and then we kind of jumped on the whole like ancient, the old flood, the Inky versus Enlil flood. So, in a sense, if the the book was written on some of their history, then wouldn't us, or as the people, well, back then we would have, I don't know what we would have been, but could that have been, and we are the remnants now of
I reckon
flood.
when I think then, because you've got to remember the trees were bigger, so were the people, and then there were little people, and you can look in any old painting of the old buildings and that, and you'll see the giant buildings, little people. You'll see giant people and little people if you have a close look. They're right in front of your eyes. And I think, yeah, we're the little people left over for some reason. Yeah, we're left over. And, you know, I thought a lot about it, Jules, because as you know, we believe in reincarnation, our Mobby come back. How many of us were giants killed in the flood come back in this life? Like, you don't know, there was a whole race of people. Some of us could have been giants once, and now we're born into this size. And are we the giants now? Are we going to leave this world to a smaller people? That just thoughts I had.
No, I mean, it's that's why I engage in our conversations, because I get a different perspective on and see things in a way that's just slightly out of the box, but still, yeah, I can follow.
Yeah, that's me. I'm hanging on the edge of the box and I'm on the earth.
There was something else that I was going to bring up, but I can't remember.
Don't smoke. I smoked cigarettes this week and I'm coughing. Bad. Don't smoke. If you're going to smoke, make sure it's a spiritual thing. You smoke around and not in there. All right, so
and I did. I had I sparked some incense earlier.
Another thing
today's aroma is the planet.
The planet, yeah, because we're talking about floods. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, another thing about the flood, from what I've spoke to my Bible friends about, and looked at another bit of research, one flood came from the waters below. They let the waters below come up and flood the earth. I don't know. That could be the Enki and Lil one. I'm not sure.
I'm not an expert in. I mean, I have, like, if you want to call it, armchair historian, but I'm not a historian. I'm just the average schmo. I'm just the average person who has questions, and I'm on my journey of finding answers for myself. And I feel privileged that people are kind enough to stop and hear my crazy rants and my questions and not judge and just answer and guide me on my way.
Well, I'm a thirst for knowledge. I have a thirst for knowledge. And like I said, in my spare time, I go looking around at things, trying to link it.
Yeah, I'll have to drop a link to the out of place artifacts, because there was the Drupa stones, pictures of them, and when I saw them on how they have all of those things that just look like coarse patterns, but underneath a microscope, how they all had different symbols on them and how they were dated, and just interesting video. But when I saw it, it's like that reminded me so much of the modern record, because those stones had the frequency.
Yep.
And the last time they were ever talked about was, I believe, 1994 or thereabouts.
Oh, right. I think there's. I'm not sure about this. I'll explain it. So back then, the way the energy was, because we know that rocks have frequency and that, right? Different crystals and, like, you know, this one here, it's got a frequency, it can be programmed, blah, 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 blah. And we know that it's really easy to make a radio just out of a crystal and some wire and stuff. So I think back then they knew that each rock had different energy and they harnessed the technology from it. Okay. And that's what I call like natural technology. Then maybe I think the flood happened or something happened, because sometimes things happen in the sky which make flood. Something like that happened. I'm wondering if it changed the energy here, that they don't work, or that they still work and it's us that think they don't work anymore, or the technology we have makes too much interference for them to work, or something like around that. Because I feel they'd still work, because if they work for us, they'd still work for that kind of natural technology.
Yeah, I'm not, but by no means am I an expert, because I retain knowledge. But when sometimes when you learn something or something comes to you or you accept your reality, some things get subcompartmentalized and some things eventually fall off and get shredded. So, but what we were talking about just kind of reminds me, here we go again, back to E.T.
The people that live in the extra land. And is that all that land on the earth, or is it? Have you ever heard about the floating cities and stuff like that, like land that floats in the sky? You wouldn't know, because we have chemtrails that cover it up. So.
Did I drop you the link to? There was like the old Disney 50s propaganda. I have something juicy in my archives.
Oh, you have to send it to me. But yeah, floating land. I wonder what that would put. It's extraterrestrial in the air. What else? The flood. The other thing I found, it's why it's all over the world, the flood. Like, I've gone to every country to find remnants. Even in our mob, all the native people have some record of a lot of water, whether it be water rising, this or just water coming down from the sky.
We could actually watch that later on tonight. Hey Joe, hey Connie, if you guys are keen.
Yeah, I kind of got a day off.
I dropped something I can't say it on the tubes.
Yeah.
But that's something I can definitely. It's interesting because I'm sure there's a story behind it, but it's proof of something.
Okay. For some reason, I just want to reach in and give you a little big hug. Okay, we'll do that. So the floods, there was more than one contributed to wiping out a lot of things. The most famous one is that floods the giants from the Bible, the big one.
That's where if history repeats itself, or so they say.
And you've heard about the mud flood theory, have you, Jules?
I've heard of it, but I don't know a lot of it, and I haven't had time to do any kind of
research on it.
So,
all right, I'll just roughly give you an idea. So there's a lot of buildings, very, very large buildings that we obviously didn't build, because with all the technology we have today, it still takes a great feat to build something like that. So we didn't build them. Our predecessors built them. And a lot of the buildings are covered with mud halfway up. And what our mob did, us people now, they went in, ignored the lot that was buried under the ground and just fixed the top part up to make it look like we built it and we lived in them now, right? So they renovated them up. One thing, the thing that notes these buildings too is there's no bathrooms and there's no kitchens, there's just rooms. These buildings just have rooms, right? And the ceilings are really big. Like, there's some houses today that have been preserved that you can go and see, and if you take off all the stuff that we put in it, the skeleton of the house, the size of the walls and the fireplaces and the doors and the windows are all built for larger people. Anyway, something caused what they call a mud flood, and all this mud come gushing in and then set hard. And what happened to the inhabitants, we're not sure. The reason for the mud flood, no one really knows, but I've got a feeling it's tied into the floods, plural, because when you got water washing in, there is a degree of mud that comes with it, right?
Yes.
And we all know there's watermarks on everything that's old, so we know that there was some kind of fluid, something overwhelmed the land, and mostly in certain places where these buildings still exist is where the evidence still is, and it's all over the world, Jules. So the mud flood, they're aware of the damage of something that made the mud come, and it could be liquefaction, where the earth shakes and the ground turns into like quicksand and then stops. It could be liquefaction.
One of those liquefactions happened in Port Royal.
Yeah, and one happened in New Zealand not long ago in the last couple of years, so when they had their earthquake.
I mean, more than a good at least a quarter or a third of the island sank.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the very near future.
Yeah, so it could be the liquefaction then, but I noticed when it happened in New Zealand, not all of New Zealand sunk, it was only in certain areas.
So I have a question about liquefaction.
The flood could have come in and brought the mud, and that's the reason for the mud flood. It could have been that, or it could have been, like I said, a volcano went off and the ash came, and then it rained and the ash turned into solid mud. Like, could be 1, 2, any of them 3, and even a fourth one, you can throw in a weapon of some kind that caused it all. No one's 100% sure, but we do know that some incursion happened, and we can see the results still, the latest of the latest incursion.
See, and I admit I don't know a lot about the mud flood theory, but I have been watching these videos lately on ancient civilizations, and I'm watching one of them, and I've never come across 2 completely independent YouTubers that are the same subject, but it's like a layer of one. One of them will have the history of the story of the topic, and he'll break it down, and then somebody else will come along and take that information, go way back, trace how far this is, how far back does this story go, and he's proving that these stories are hundreds of years older, and that was years before the book came out. So the more in the past 2 months, I have realized that I think civilization is far older than they're giving us credit for it to be.
Definitely. They made it seem we didn't. Yeah.
So I mean, with that, just finding that out on my own. With that, I can't argue with you and say that mud flood is not a possible thing. I mean, how old is our civilization?
Very old. And you see buildings where they say they're a certain age, and you look at them and you think, how come they look older than that one? It's so obvious they're not telling us the rigid truth. So you've got to do critical thinking, think for yourself, and add one and one together, and do your research, and look at other people's research and figure it out, and go out in your own town and look around in your own stories of your own mountains and stuff. It's there in your own backyard. Figure it out for yourself, because everyone knows hang on, this don't add up. There's too much evidence for all this stuff. But getting the precise story, it'll come eventually. And they'll find out it's happened more than once. Why it keeps happening is what I want to know. Are the species that bad that they just muck up real bad each time, like naughty kids that they have to move house? Makes you wonder.
I finally figured out how to drop the link in chat. My bad.
Oh,
If
yes,
anybody wants to come in and yarn, that is, if anybody's even watching, this was just unplanned. It's just catching up, and I had, all right, and I wasn't going out for any kind of clickbaity thing or anything with the title calling it Tinfoil Hat Association. I had no idea what the name was. And it just, at the moment, it just seemed tinfoil hat. I like it. And then again, when we started this conversation, I keep telling you, it all goes back to E.T. And I mean, even E.T. and the candy, Reese's Pieces.
Reese's Pieces. Reese's Pieces. Well, that's the other thing, the outside influence. Because like there's always a bigger fish, right? Well, that's a whole kettle of fish on its own, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it depends where you want to go with that. But one thing I know about the world is a big cycle. Like we have cycles, and every civilization that has built itself and come up and up and up, there's been some natural cycle of the earth that's come and wiped them out, and then the remnants are left over, and then it grows, and then it just keeps repeating this cycle. And that says that, well, I reckon the mother has her own cleaning cycle, like our body cleans itself, the mother cleans herself, and a big wash would be due every now and again, like a big shake.
Yeah.
And a big, I know that the Phoenicians, they call them the Phoenicians, a lot of the buildings that are left over, remnants of the past, and the ones that I said were covered up, mud flood ones, when you look at the buildings, they've got these different entrances all the way up, and they designed them for flood jewels. So if the first 1 or 2 floors flooded, they can just get their boats and go to the 3rd floor, which has a really big entryway, and just use the building still from that entryway and use what's left above the water. So they were aware that the mother had her own cycle, and they lived with that cycle, not against it. So they built their buildings accordingly, which is common sense. So it didn't matter how high the water come, they still had a building living because they made these big, strong, sturdy buildings with all these entrances.
That makes me think of how those buildings are, and I've never been to Italy, but in the canals in Venice, when you go through the gondola and those houses, those dwellings, they're kind of make me think about those thoughts.
And I thought on another level in Venice, living on water, because we all know water's a conductor, and for spirit things as well. I wonder if they have a lot of haunted houses in Venice. Activity.
Well, see, and crystals conduct energy. I mean, I can't help but think of all those crystal skulls. Were there 13 of them, and I wonder what would happen if they all got together in one big, gigantic crystal skull head.
I kind of think the other way around. Maybe they were all together and everything was lovely, and then someone found them and took them for their museum or whatever and mucked everything up. And then they're back together again.
Well, I mean, and then once they're together, then it's a cycle. Then they will separate again.
Yeah, everything in this realm is a cyclical. We're cyclical. The nature, the animals, everything's cyclical. It's one big cycle, and once you know that and you flow with it, things don't bother you as much because you just understand. Oh, that's just part of the cycle. Like we born, we die, trees grow. bear fruit, live for a while, and then one day they die, and same as animals, it's just, and then rebirth comes from the death, and it's just that cyclical cycle.
Yep. It's kind of like for me, I just kind of came to me that it's like the dryer cycle. There's that one little blue sock and with all the whites and the linens, and it's going around and around doing its thing, and then it's like, all right, no big deal. You're gonna bump into me, toss and turn, tumble, but at the end, you're still a sock. You achieved your mission.
Yeah, you did. You made everyone blue. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you always got to remember that one tiny thing that changes many things. Because people think, oh, what can I do? I'm nobody, I'm nothing. But it only takes one little drop of dye to change the whole colour of the water. So, you know.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, colors are interesting. Like the primary colors. And, and how they became about.
And I wonder in another place.
And all the, and I think you've seen the same again, going back into, and I'll have to go back and edit this stream to YouTubers because on YouTube, I remember seeing a few years ago the historical trio and duo that did the castle and the Tudor farm.
Oh yeah, oh, I love them mob, yeah.
I mean, I've learned that sparked my interest in stuff. It was really interesting seeing stained glass being made and actually making a book. Nerdy stuff like that, but it was totally interesting. I mean, it's something that we use almost daily, every day in our modern lives, and kind of interesting history how nobody has but I digress.
No, you're right, because that goes into, they had one where they built a castle. They went
they had the castle, and to get the color to paint the walls in the castle, they got the Oracoke out of the ground.
Now, if anyone
watched it, and they painted the walls inside the castle.
Yeah, if anyone watches that, you'll find that they'll tell you how many years it takes to make the castle, and that particular castle is quite a small one compared to the remnants we have left over. And then you go back and you look at your history and your dates and all that, and how long they reckon it took to make things. But you go by that documentary telling you there's these people making this castle by hand and how hard it is and all the stuff they've got to do. That's one of the pieces of evidence you can use in the mud flood fury, they call it, you know. So it's just basically saying that they're lying to us about the age of these buildings and who made them. And that's one of the evidence. You go and watch that documentary, see it real life for yourself, get all the heights, measurements, and time and all that, and then apply it to what they tell you, and it doesn't figure out because it's a lot of hard work.
I mean, I'm not a historical genius or anything, but isn't it kind of proof with the Sphinx on how it's been all the erosion and everything, once they finally got it all out of sand, how they're able to tell that it's far old, the erosion is there and it's older than it should be.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. They realised by looking at it that it's a lot older than they're saying it is. That carbon dating too, they found it's not to be accurate because they can only sometimes date things around them and not the actual artifact or the actual thing.
Yeah.
And then it's not accurate. So I think it's not being honest in that area either, but your eyes don't lie when you see, hang on a minute, that building looks way older than what you're telling me. And some of them lasted longer than what they tell you. And you can tell they're still standing. Like, to make things last that long, we can't do that. Well, we could, but we don't. And most people don't know how anymore. So you can tell they're BS and us. And the evidence is there. For some reason, this time of the world, it's like, you know, when you can go to a beach and you walk up the same beach 3 times, and then one day you go there and the sands cough something up for you, and it's come out of the system and it's right there. It's like that's what the Earth's done to us. It's like, well, there's all these secrets, I'm going to cough them all up, whether it rained a lot or what. But bang, they're popping up all over the place, and we're still getting them. It's like the great reveal, you know what I mean? Here's all the evidence for all these different things. Because the things they've found, Jules, they found technology in places that were supposed to be cavemen at the time, you know what I mean? But they had technology that was sort of the same as today. So yeah, they're tripping over their own tail there. And it's common sense to know that, oh yeah, there was a people that rose up and achieved great things, and then they fell, and then another one came, and of course we've been here before. We've had this kind of technology.
I mean, and these great flood stories, they all have similar characters. I mean, you have from Atlantis, you have Thoth.
Yep.
From the Enki and Enlil, you have Enki. And then and he's also Loki.
And here you got Tiddly.
And Zeus. I mean, there's all these same similarities, all these different pantheons, and they've had a flood. I feel like,
and they have an argument about us, because some of them like us and some of them.
I mean, I feel getting an education years ago would have been far more entertaining if it wasn't like, this is what you have to learn. If there was more of an area where I had more room to do my own conclusion. Yeah. But back in the day, and then back when I was in school, we didn't have all this technology though.
True. So it's libraries.
It's kind of a catch-22.
Libraries, is that a place you go to read the lie out of the brewery?
What's in a brewery?
I don't know.
Does it have cookies and juice?
Yeah, or is it just a bush? Yeah, education. Just imagine if you went to history class at school and the teacher said to you, okay, I want you to go home and find the most interesting or the most unknown history fact and write about where it is, what it is, and all that, right? And it can be anything you want. The kids would go home, it'd be very interesting to see all their assignments, but just imagine their minds going home and go, wow, they'd have to spread their mind out just to think I can do anything. You know what I mean? So they'll be spreading their minds out going history, and they'll have to spread it all the way around just to find something that they'd like. Do I do modern history, really old history? Just in that little assignment, their minds would be so exercised, but they don't do it that way. They tell you what to do. Go home and do an assignment on Roman history and bring it back. And they don't let them explore their own minds, and they choose their own things that they like, you know. Anyway, that'll all change one day. Healing, education, all that, it all needs to be changed up and get a realistic stamp.
I mean, I don't regret the education I got or didn't get. I mean, I'm perfectly content finding things out on my own right in present time.
You learn more that way, yeah, because you go by your interests, and you can learn lots and lots of things just by doing it yourself, and going to the right places to learn it.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, that's what that was on other events.
Yeah. Whatever floats your boat. I recommend a good, healthy mind and learn something new every day, whether it's a gigantic piece of knowledge or just something really, really simple. Keep your mind growing.
Yep.
I learned last week. I learned a heap of simple things. They were just little, them little tricks and ideas that make life easier. I learned a heap of them last week. Can't remember them all exactly, but I put them into my life. And this week it was the opposite. It was big knowledge, really complex big knowledges that I learned this week. So big or small, keep on growing.
Yeah. I mean, it was the energies this week were just crazy. This
Yeah.
this week was like 2 days in a row. The customers that came in and the sass, the attitude, and I wasn't there. And it's a story for another time, but it involves somebody threatening a
The week was
lawsuit,
crazy.
and it's just irate customers. That's a whole segment itself.
Well, I'll tell you something. When many years ago they gave me a vision of now, and they showed me people flipping out and going crazy, right? And I remember looking for years. I looked at that vision. What the hell? Why are people doing this? Because the vision they showed me was just normal vision of the street and the shopping centre, and normal people walking around, all kinds of people, and then bang, just like that, people started going off randomly. And observing what's going on in the world now, that's exactly what's happening. People are going off randomly. They're overloading. They can't handle what's going on. Too much revealing, too much of the other stuff, and it's happening. So our job is to calm the quell and say, it's all right. It's going to be all right. Just chill out. We're going to make it. Don't worry. But crazy things are happening upon that in all different levels as well, spiritually, weather-wise, everywhere you look, it's all up and crazy right now.
Yeah, I mean, we had the storms that just rolled through.
Yeah,
I've noticed in the past couple of weeks, especially I noticed it today, how it's not even the middle of August and leaves here are already changing colors. That typically doesn't happen here for another 3.5 months.
Whoa. Yeah, and that kind of happened here. They all went to sleep, and they're still asleep. But the last 2 years, nothing went to sleep. They slept. They didn't even go to sleep. They just went from fruiting and leafing. When they were supposed to go to sleep, they didn't. They just kept going. And this year they went to sleep. So
they just
natural
had a nap.
Yeah. I trust the mother. I think she knows what she's doing. And the plants and animals know, and we just go with the flow. They're not dying. They're just changing their rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that message that said, I'm not ready for anything. Well, that's how I feel now. I'm not ready for anything. But then I looked at myself and I went, don't get me wrong, I'm prepared. I'm just not ready. And I don't think we are ready for anything. I think we can be prepared for things in life.
Yeah.
But readiness is a different thing because it can happen at any moment.
True.
Yeah. And you won't know to that moment if you're actually ready. Yeah. So that's what I put. I'm not ready for anything. Are you ready?
But yeah. So I mean, I honestly didn't have much to.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just going to catch up with you, and that's just what happened. Just in the past, course of my evening, on how indulging on YouTube, and how I've been so busy this week, and it's like, and how I'm noticing that everything that on my journey that I've always thought or had a suspicion of or an inkling of, everything I'm finding sources that are helping me answer my questions on my journey. And I want to keep learning. So having people like you, Luna, that will indulge me and get me thinking. Definitely.
Yeah, I'll get you on the outside of the Hang on. Come with me. I'll give you wings and you can fly around the box. Thank you, Jules. But that's what it's like, you know. You just stretch yourself out. All things are possible. So you gotta look at
mental gymnastics.
Yeah. And it just come over me while you were talking to say hello to people, like, hi ZX if you watch this, hi Wookie, who else?
Hey Polly.
Hey Polly, yeah. Hey, oh Polly's in the room. I didn't say that. Hi Polly, hi Connie, hi Joe. Stacey from another channel.
I dropped the link in chat if anybody wants to jump in. It's just, I mean, it's the thumbnail is a picture of a yarn, so everybody is welcome to jump in and say something. I mean, I can share Luna.
Yeah, jump in. It's like say next week, hopefully. Oh, you know, next week. I'm a year older next week. Because I haven't done a show on my channel for 2 weeks as I've been busy and doing other things, or it's 3 weeks. But I'll come up with something interesting, you know, little educational thing. When it happens, I'll do it. So I'm looking at juicy stuff. Something in me wants to go to the line. Like, I love talking about the things that people don't dare to talk about. Like someone the other day said to me, you know, I don't really like people. And I said, don't worry, there are a lot of people like that. He goes, most people won't say that. They won't say that nor talk about it. And I laughed and I went, don't worry, I know a lot of people that don't like people. So it's all good. I said, sometimes you can only have so much with people. The conversations that people don't normally talk about is what I like to do. I like to, you know, take it to the line and see what happens. So when I come back, I'll come up with something like that. I don't, who knows? Crowd will give it to me. Crowd said, get online and talk about this. And I go, yeah, okay. So we'll see what happens. PPP. I heard another thing for PPP the other day. What it was? Oh, yeah. Point pump. It was a gun one. Point pump. I forgot what the last thing was. Point pump and help me out, someone. Point pump. I don't know. Often, yeah. Anyway, it was about shooting. PPP stands for a lot of things. Pleasant purple people.
Pretty pink parka, even though it's not a parka.
Yeah, our brother Wookie made that up, I think. Anyway, because Key PPP is part-time parenting program.
I mean, back in my teenage days, I've heard it referred to as PPP.
Yeah. Oh, all right. What else can we talk about? It was interesting. More about the flood and the giant, and yeah, because I do that. Actually, I'll tell you what I do in my spare time. I get onto the satellite.
Yeah, have you found any new images?
Oh yes, I went to New Zealand, and I'm waiting for my cousin to jump online with me and talk about it and look. But if that's not going to happen, I'm going to present them anyway. But man, did I find stuff in New Zealand? I found more there than here. You know, I can see like a timeline from really old, worn down remnants to newer remnants, and the ones in the southern hemisphere in Europe are a lot newer than the ones down here. The ones down here look like they're far older, worn down or blown up a more older time, you know what I mean? It's like they started here, stuffed it up, and then went up to Europe and tried it again.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and we're yarning, and I'm going back to that video, the out of place artifacts. That Puri Reis map.
Yes.
And how the whole Antarctica coastline.
Oh yes.
It was similar, and how there were a computer simulation that ran it in reverse. If everything is a cycle, then how old is civilization?
Exactly. You know what confuses me is BC, AD and BC. I'm like, what are they hiding? Like, why split it up like that? Why couldn't they start with the beginning of time as one? And then I realised they can't do that because they don't know. So they had to do it for what they remember. So they marked that time as AD, which is a story that's been told many times. And I don't want to get into that because it causes controversy. But they start it at AD and then they can go backwards as far as they like because they do not know day one. They do not know day 562. They don't know. So they just make it up. I learned that if they don't make it up.
I have my thoughts and my opinions on that.
We'll spit it out.
Because
tell me.
In theory, if the Sumerian creation myth in that line, I mean, then they came Nibiru, in theory, allegedly. And if they came from another planet and their lifespan is 1,000 years or more, I mean, they come here. I mean, how would they keep time? Time only matters here. If they're interplanetary, interdimensional, if it's another dimension, it's a whole different time. Time doesn't matter. It only affects us.
Yeah, and we can bend time if you want to, but they got you living by the clock, which makes sure that the time you live by is precisely counted and you cannot escape. But if you threw that clock away, and when I know what the time is, and went by when the sun's in the middle of the sky, you know it's 12 o'clock, right? So it's easy to figure out what's before that and what's after that. But if you do it that way and go by the big clock in the sky, you'll find that your mornings and afternoons will bend exactly how you want them. If you want them long, they'll be long. If you want them fast, they'll be fast. And you will master your own time. But we all live by the tick-tock, click-clock, tick-tick-tock. And yeah, it measures your precise time so you cannot escape. That's what I feel.
Have I triggered anything on YouTube tonight?
I don't know, have we?
I'm not in control room, but I guess I'll find out tomorrow. I mean, I don't feel like I have.
No, anywhere. I recently stayed at a place. I was sitting in the lounge room, and it was at night, and it was very quiet, and all you could hear was tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And I looked at the wall and realised they had a clock. Then I looked over to the other wall and realised they had another little clock that was sitting on a shelf. So all you could hear was tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I thought, all right, I'm going to bed. So I went to bed, and this room that I was staying in, guess what was right next to the bed? Another clock that went tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And then when I was away this week, the person said there's a clock in the room. I felt like throwing it out the window.
Was that the past, the present, or the future, or all of them at the same time?
All at once going tick. Well, that's what it reminded me of, Jules. This is time. This is past, present, future, and we're all singing at once tick tock, tick tock. And I'm thinking, I'm going to throw these clocks out the window. This is driving me mad. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Oh, you're right. Your thoughts can be like that. Tick tock, tick tock. Oh, that was so funny. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I didn't like. I just did the whole week thing. I really didn't have anything to talk about other than just why I was late.
Is on our side.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. They might get us a copyright, but we can't sing, so does it count? That's what I want to know. If you can sing a song that's on copyright and you can't sing and you sing that song, how can you be copyrighted?
You do have a point
like
there. So, do you have anything going on your channel or anything
No,
going
that's what I was
on
saying
in
before.
general?
I will come up with something. I'm all over the place at the moment.
I mean, I want to yarn, but some things we can't in here. But
Yeah, I know. And I thought what I could do is, when I think about it, is take my phone with me on my little adventures and put that on my channel while I'm not around to actually be on there. But I'm not one of them people. I forget to take photos. I forget to pull the camera out and take a video. I do it all after. It's like, oh, that was great. Gee, I should have took a photo of that or something, you know. Then it's too late. It's already happened. I'm one of them people. So if I do manage to get anything on there, it's kind of like a miracle. But yeah, I'll get back
yeah,
on the
I mean, we're on your channel next go around.
Okay, I've been given them. See, it's your turn next, Luna. Okay.
I'll pass the baton on, or like, no, here's your chalice.
Yeah. Thank you, Jules, for getting me out of trouble these last few weeks, because I've come home and had no time to do anything. No time.
It's the same energy. The longer we yarn and we connect, the more I can sense your energy, and it's the same energy that I have.
Yeah, so we're doing good.
So I can totally relate to you. If your days are half as crazy as mine have been in the past couple of weeks.
It's been like that, but that's all right. It's good. It's better than boring. It's better than being exactly the same every day and nothing happening.
True. So I did chill the other night. I had my half birthday this week.
Oh, congratulations.
So I played some old school Super Nintendo Mario World 3. Mario Brothers 3. The old one that had like the yellow package where he's like got the raccoon tail. I think that's the one.
Actually, I'm not a gamer, Jules, but I had a lot of children, and all my children grew up playing games. Probably that's why I don't do it, because I was too busy watching them while they did it. But yeah, I don't really play any.
I mean, I play games in phases. I'm not one to chronically play one every day.
I'll play like puzzle games and stuff like that, but
I like puzzle games and board games.
I have to be honest, Jules. When I play games with my partner and the kids, and you've got a person that you've got to walk around or drive, or I can't do it. I either crash all the time, or I keep bumping into things, and by the time they're all playing the game, they're like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm still trying to figure out how to walk. I'm still trying to figure out how to drive this machine." I'm hopeless. I'm literally hopeless, so I don't even bother. Give me something like Candy Crush. I can figure that out. That's all right.
I have never played Candy Crush.
I have. I'm pretty good at it.
I've only, in my entire time of having a smart device phone, I've only downloaded 2, maybe 3 games. One of them was a total time killer. I mean, intentionally time killer. It was called Coin Dozer. I mean, it's like the old school arcade where you put the quarter in and the
simple fun
coins down.
My favorite was Whack-A-Mole.
I used to like watching remember going to fairs and carnivals and seeing those quarter machines where you try to aim the quarter in and those quarters would never.
No, I know.
Never. It was like,
okay.
You'll put in $5 and you'll get a quarter back.
The things we do that keep us amused, eh? It's funny.
I haven't seen one of them in any of those in years, but then again, I haven't gone out of my way to go to a fair in forever.
Last one, the other day, I saw a human one. You know, the one that's got the claw and it goes over and picks things up and then drops them. I saw a human one. You get strapped into this machine and it takes you along and you've got to pick up as many things and hold on to it as you can. And then it brings you back over to drop you down.
That reminds me of it was like, I think it was a segment on a TV show or a game show or something where you would go in this like old-fashioned pay telephone booth that had the booth where the doors open up and they had like the money cannon in there where they had all these bills floating around and you had to like
Oh,
whatever you could catch, however you could catch it, stuff it in your shirt, stuff it in your pants, whatever you could do to get the money.
that was funny, eh? You'd want to make sure you wore clothes with a lot of pockets.
What was it? Do you remember the name of that show?
Pardon?
Do you remember the name of that show?
No, I don't actually.
Was it a game show? Was it a segment on a TV show? I remember it, but I don't remember where it's from.
Yeah. It was a segment. That was like the last segment on the show. I think you had to answer questions, and then whoever won gets to go in the booth. But we had shows that just had booths, like there'd be a talk show, and at the end they'd have a show like they'd get someone out of the audience to go in the booth and grab money, and it was all blown around. But yeah, there was a show. I can't remember what it was called.
So I want to say that was a tail end of a game show, but they had some back in the day nostalgic. There's a lot of nostalgia for me in game shows as a kid, just wasting time.
Same. Well, I was a kid on TV. We had Blankety Blank.
I mean, I've wasted a lot of time watching Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy. Yeah. Not that I haven't learned anything from Jeopardy.
Jeopardy and
I mean, I did get it every now and then. I do get a little nugget of, oh, that's right, from Jeopardy. The Price is Right.
Celebrity Squares,
Card Shark, Press Your Luck.
We've still got game shows. My mum watches them in the afternoon. Some of them still run.
Well, I mean, now there's like with cable, there's like Family Feud. Now with cable, I mean, Game Show Network. When they first launched up, they were replaying all those old network game shows from the like 80s, 70s, 80s.
We had one, it's a newer one. I wish they had kept it going. I don't know if you've had one like it, and I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was an improvisation kind of show. So what it was, they'd get comedians and they had rooms set up, and virtually what they'd do is give the comedian one line and shove them in this room, and they had to improvise. And the rooms would be set up different. Like one room was like a kid's play centre, and they were a kid and they had to find their mum, and there's people in there and they just got to act it out and pretend it's real and make it as funny as they can. Or another way might be they walk in the room and they're a doctor. They give them a doctor coat and they shove them in the room, and it's an operation thing, and they've got to make it as funny as they could be. But they just put them in these really funny situations and just let them go and improvise. It was the funniest show I ever watched, and I don't know why they stopped putting it on, because it was just ad lib. All the comedians loved it, the audience loved it, I love it. It was so funny, just ad lib. They just shove them in the room and then they got to ad lib it.
And I know what show you're talking about.
You know that show? You would have had one. We had an Aussie version.
Yeah.
But funny as, man. It was the funniest show I ever saw. Watching these comedians ad lib.
I can't believe I forgot the name of it.
And then we had another show where they filled the room of comedians and they weren't allowed to laugh.
Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Pardon?
Was the name of the show called Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah, I think so. It might have been something like that. I'm not sure. I think it was something like that. Yeah, they had another one where they shoved all the comedians in a room and they weren't allowed to laugh. If you laughed, you got chucked out. So they made each other laugh, obviously, to play the competition. That was the funniest thing ever. Because one bloke, he just had a funny face and he'd just walk around to the other comedians and just look them in the eye, and you could see they were trying not to laugh because he just had one of them faces. and one of the girls, she realised he was doing that, so she kept running to the different corners of the room trying to keep away from him. That was a really funny show. There's not many funny things anymore. Did you notice that? The funniness isn't...
I honestly can't say that I have, because I don't watch any TV or anything.
Oh, yeah. I just noticed that. We
need more fun in the world. I'm busy entertaining myself. I don't have time to watch a lot of streaming or TV.
the fun thing for the week. Here's homework for everyone. Buy or make a little thing of bubbles and go out in public and blow bubbles for people. They love it. I did it in the car one day. I stuck it out the window, and as we're driving along, there were heaps of bubbles. And then someone goes, "Stop doing that, you'll get in trouble." I'm thinking, how can I get in trouble for putting bubbles out the window?
I would be blowing bubbles. I would have a bubble machine going off behind me right now, except for the soap that the bubbles are made of. It would be sticky, and it's like, nah.
You need to do that for outside. And did you know that bubbles stay together better in winter than they do in summer? They last longer. The cold air holds them better for some reason.
I will have to try. I will do that. I will do that.
There's your experiment. Everyone try it. And we'll see you next week. So what else, Jules?
I didn't really have anything. I mean, I was just touching base with you, making sure you had a good week.
Good week, yes. Strange, wonderful, and full of different things. Can't complain.
Yeah, so I do have a thought though. The whole Tartaria, where does that play in with?
That's part of the old world. That's the old world. Also, mud flood fits in with that because a lot of the the so-called Tartarian buildings have this mud flood effect. So and the Tartarian buildings had natural technology. They were rigged up for natural technology because you got to go, Tesla stuff. You got to go so high in the ether to collect the natural electricity. And the Tartarian buildings were built like that. They had all these beautiful peaks and metals to collect all that energy, and that'll be put into the house. During the war, World War I and II, they bombed a lot of the Tartarian buildings because they didn't want people to know you could live like that, right? And in the remnants, you can see metal going through and all these different things that they use to collect the energy and filter it through the house. It's just a different form of technology. And the Tartarian people themselves, that they reckon that Russia and China, all that, that was all Tartaria. And if you have a look at old flags and old maps, you'll see their territory, Tartary, they call it. But it's just like anything else. You know how in Ireland and Scotland and the Celts and all that, there were names of mobs and they've changed them. It's the same thing. There were names of mobs, they changed them. A lot of them got destroyed. I think what happened with them is when the incursion came, the mud flood incursion, whatever it was done by, water, liquefaction, whatever, whoever their enemies were attacked them in a time of being vulnerable. And that's how they dispersed all them people. And they actually had tartan, Jules, like the Scots tartan, they wore tartan. They had tartan in their clothes.
Because that's what brought up my thoughts of Tartaria was tartan.
Yeah. And from what I gather, it was just a different conglomeration of people before the mean ones come and slaughtered them all. But who knows what they were like? We weren't there. It's just remnants.
Yeah.
Remnants of what was left. But again, it's the true history, which we're not being told because you only get told the history by the conqueror, and it's all about them, of course, because they're mostly narcissistic. They don't say the truth. Oh, look, these were the people that come before. And we come along and conquered them all and slaughtered most of them, and that's how we got here today. They're not going to say that to you.
No, they're not.
Yeah. I would. If I was the evil overlord, I'd tell the truth. No. So Tartaria is that, and they were very beautiful people. They had beautiful ornamentation on their heads, and I'll tell you some leftovers. In Russia, the royalty line they were the leftovers of Tartaria.
The Bolsheviks?
Yeah. You know how they had them beautiful crowns that came up like this and came down the sides? They were leftovers of that era. And I think that's why they got rid of them, because they wanted to get rid of that whole thing. You can't have people with free energy. You can't have people happy. They had bells. Can you imagine living in a place where there were bells in the ringing at certain times of the day, and music playing, and it'd make you feel good, and it'd make all the plants grow really big and healthy? Like, imagine living in a place like that. It's possible. They destroyed all that. That's why there's remnants of bells left over. They dismantled all the buildings that had the technology run. They had to dismantle it somehow by taking it out or blowing it up. They got rid of the people. And these people were a lot bigger than us back then. What else did they do? Yeah, they just got rid of everything and covered over and lied about the rest. So that's what Tataya is. Like, it's all tied in with the whole thing. It's just another piece of the whole history.
Yeah.
Some people say it's bullshit, blah, 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 but there's evidence. You go and look yourself. There's evidence of the buildings. There's evidence of the flags. There's evidence of the people, photos. There's evidence left behind. Look at the evidence and make up your own mind. But yeah, that's just Tartaria. But that's what I mean, Jules, about the Earth's coughing up all these things, secrets. They're all getting uncovered for people to find. They've always been there. It's just that we've only...
Yeah, it's like the sand dollar that washes up on the beach.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And as like history, you know, unless you were there, you can't give an accurate account. We're just coming back and saying so by what we've been told, by who's left behind some evidence. That's it. So yeah. So it's good, interesting to know though, because the things they achieved are achievable again. But I do wonder, Jules, whether that form of technology they had actually caused the mud flood. That is a question. They might have stuffed up a vibration thing one day and it went haywire and caused chaos.
I mean, if they were advanced as we were told they're not, then I can't. I mean, why not?
Yeah. So yeah, and a lot of people are onto the mud flood thing. There's a lot of researchers. I've been doing it for a while. I just don't, you know, I don't really even talk about it much to other people. It's just something I do for my own interests.
I mean, and again, I don't know much of it, but from the information that I'm uncovering on my journey, it certainly coincides with we're not being told right. We're not being told something.
Because Scotland is one of the most mud flooded places. Hey, you go to Scotland, there everything's built like this, and you can see the buildings where something's come along and made it like that because the rest of the buildings are underneath. You got it in America. Yeah, they're covered up. You look, you can see half a window covered up, and you look down and you know there's more building underneath, but it's covered up by earth. Yeah, but Scotland has heaps of them.
I mean, if you think about it, like those pictures, or how I'm led to believe how the lock is, it looks like it's layered. So kind of it's like the Loch Ness, it's like a giant aquarium for
It might have been a giant aquarium once, and he had all these unusual things in it, and he left it.
It has these caves and these layers. Yeah. I mean, it's got constant hiding spot.
Yeah, it has. And
just
there's
crazy thought that I just had.
Well, there's a whole area we haven't spoken about before, is all the underground tunnels that go all over the world.
Oh, there's underground tunnels
and the land ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another thing. Things travel, like in that case, the Loch Ness. Those critters go under the water tunnels under the ground and come out somewhere else. That's how they, stay hidden. Don't go chasing them. So I hate to you, this is the thing, I don't like giving this information because there might be some scientist out there, oh, now I can finally catch them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, we have underground tunnels. Every culture has history of some tunnels that go under the ground and lead to somewhere else, or a big city, or pop up in another country or whatever, and has things living in them, and once known to be well used, like They're there. They're everywhere. They're in your town now.
True.
We got them here. They're in the mountains here. They're building tunnels for the roads. What they don't know is that there were already pre-existing tunnels in those mountains, and if they keep building tunnels, their tunnels, they're going to fall down because they don't know there's the. Well,
I wonder how the boring project is going. All those underground tunnels in California.
Yeah, you've got them there. Yeah, that's what I mean. Eventually, you can only put so many holes in something before it falls down, right?
True. Yep. So I got nothing else to say other than thank everybody for showing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting anybody at all, and you guys are awesome. Love you, Polly. Love you, Joe. Love you, Connie.
Yeah. Love you, Mr. Polly. We need to have yarn. Do a show with
Polly. We should yarn.
Hey. All right. So that's the weekend. I hope everyone has a really good end of the week. Till next time.
Yeah. Whenever if it's Friday, we're at your house.
This Friday, yeah. It's party time.
Yep.
It's my birthday.
Next Friday, we're at Luna's house.
It's my birthday next Friday. So
we might not.
Anything that I say, do. I relinquish responsibility.
So, I'm yawning, so that's always a sign.
Yeah, let you go. Thank you, Jules, very much.
No, thanks for coming on, and I just want to say thank you, everybody, for spending some Friday night vibes. So enjoy your weekend, and until next time, Yalu.
See ya. Have a good week. Crowder loves you.